Luke, jumping back to the wide receivers for just a second, I know it's probably the deepest position group of this draft. You mentioned the number of guys that could go in the top 100. A guy like Malachi Corley, who I think diehard, maybe, deep rooted college football fans know that guy's name, but, coming from a smaller school like Western Kentucky, Senior Bowl really gives him a chance to show out and show out against really good Power Five competition. How did he stand out to you?
Yeah, and it's not just the Senior Bowl that gives him a chance. Malachi gives himself a chance because of his demeanor. He's one that's very outgoing, and I wrote a story about him, hasn't been published yet, but just wrote something up about him last night because I thought he was one that really seized the opportunity. And yes, on the field, absolutely made plays, showed that he can be versatile. The big thing that he's battling, obviously, he's going to get knocked for being smaller. He's going to get knocked from being a small school guy. But he's also got to get himself out of the box of he's a gadget player or maybe a running back. And he talked to me about some of those things of people keep trying to pin him in or put him in a box. And this week for him was all about making sure that they couldn't do that after this week because of what the tape says. And for Malachi, comes in, we talk about him being a standout guy. Yeah, standout on the field for sure. You look at some of the tape that he's put out of the speed, I think, is one thing that he's starting to show. The miles per hour, he broke 20 at the Senior Bowl, for example. But he was pretty adamant. I talked to him about his combine times, and he said 4.3. He said, I'm running a 4.3. I said, okay. And I was like, have you been doing that in practice, or what are we talking about? And he's like, yeah, I've been hitting 4.3. So he's put that on the record that that's where he's going to be. So we might have to, the Senior Bowl, he was named the top receiver on the American team, and that's something that, that was good. He stood out, but I don't think he's really caught people's eye yet. And if he is going to catch people's eye in a big way, I think it's going to be that combine time of if he does get the 4.3 like he says he will, it's going to start to get people rocketing him up the board. I'm looking at day 2 for Malachi Corley. I'm thinking probably mid-second to early 3rd. Assuming, again, of course, with times, and where things could end up. If he runs bad, then we're talking later in the 3rd. But to me, with Corley, an example of just who he is, he comes into the media day, and most people are kind of wearing street clothes and black sweatsuits. There's not really a dress code, so you just dress how you want. But he comes in, tight white T-shirt, couple of big chains, big smile, kind of greeting people as he walked in. So made himself a very outgoing type. And talking to him, he was there to spread a message and there to talk about, because he really didn't have a chance to try to shape the narrative around him. I mean, over 3,000 yards receiving at Western Kentucky, still didn't get a ton of exposure on the national scale. So he was there to try to run PR for himself. And he's got, I want to say, his brother that helps manage him, and they're trying to, get Malachi to that top level. So that was something that he stood out. He definitely talked a big game, and he was able to separate himself at the Senior Bowl. And to me, to put the number on it, I'm thinking picks number 45 to 65 is probably about the range for what I'm feeling on Malachi right now, of just where he is. I know undersized, I know small school, but I came away believing in him a bit more after this week.
I mean, look at Tank Dell from last year, right? The guy that goes in a similar range, and he's not even flirting with a 4.3, and he sets the NFL on fire when he's healthy this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the word versatile that you keep using, that's what's in demand right now, right? The Deebo Samuel-esque role, whether, physicality maybe, depending, although I saw a clip of Corley throwing a DB at the top of his route, really just to kind of set the tone. It felt like, he knew that was a chalked rep. He knew that was going to draw the flag. And he didn't care. He was there to, as you mentioned, run PR for himself, set a message, and kind of put the draft world on notice. I loved it. I loved watching the reps, watching his tape when I got to see that on Twitter.
Gracious,